Obena was a skilled carpenter in the bustling city of Owerri, known for his intricate craftsmanship, but struggling with limited tools and finances. He lived modestly, working tirelessly to build furniture with the dream of expanding his trade. Despite his struggles, his heart was filled with love for his girlfriend, Cheta, a bright young woman with ambitions of furthering her education. He had sworn to himself that he would support her dream, even at the expense of his own comfort. Cheta, having passed her university entrance exams with flying colors, hesitated about pursuing her studies due to financial constraints. She had resigned herself to finding a local job, but Obena, determined to see her succeed, surprised her with a brown envelope containing 650,000 naira. Overwhelmed by his generosity and sacrifice, she embraced him tearfully, though a part of her heart ached at the thought of leaving the only man she had ever known behind for 4 years. Back at his shop, Obena was proud to tell his friends about Cheta's upcoming university journey. His friend Obi cautioned him, warning that success often changed people. But Obena dismissed the idea, believing that Cheta was different. He even displayed a large portrait of her in his workshop, a testament to his unwavering faith in their love. His devotion was evident to everyone, even to Bola, the food vendor who secretly harbored feelings for him and often noticed Nkechi's envious glances at Cheta's photograph. Meanwhile, at university, Cheta met Kosha, a street-smart and stylish girl from Lagos. Kosha lived a lavish lifestyle, one that made Cheta's simple wardrobe stand out even more. Though Kosha subtly belittled Obena when he visited, he remained oblivious, his focus solely on his beloved Cheta. As time passed, Kosha's influence began to shape Cheta's perspective, though she still held on to Obena's love. After graduation, Cheta returned home to await her youth service posting. Kosha, now a close friend, often invited her to outings, but Cheta declined, citing financial reasons. However, one day, Kosha invited her to her cousin's birthday, promising to provide her with a new dress and a glamorous look. When Cheta informed Obena, he allowed her to go, trusting her without hesitation. That evening, as he anxiously waited for her return, he peeked through the window and saw her being dropped off by a BMW. Suspicion crept into his heart, but when he questioned her, she dismissed his worries, claiming the driver was merely a friend. Though the seed of doubt was planted, Obena pushed the thought away, choosing to believe in his love. One evening during dinner, Cheta received her posting notification. She was assigned to Akwaibong. While Obena rejoiced for her, she felt a deep sadness, knowing she lacked the funds for transportation. Once again, her devoted carpenter came to her rescue, handing her another envelope containing 300,000 naira. Tears filled her eyes as she thanked him sincerely, overwhelmed by his unwavering support. 2 days before her departure, Kosha excitedly informed Cheta that they had been posted to the same location. Though Obena had never liked Kosha's influence, he said nothing, wishing only for Cheta's happiness. With one last embrace, she left for Akwaibong, promising to keep in touch, a promise that would soon be broken. Months passed, and Obena's calls to Cheta went unanswered. He became restless, his work suffering as worry consumed him. Bola, noticing his distress, pressed him for answers. Reluctantly, he admitted that Cheta had not reached out for 6 months, and he feared the worst. Bola suggested he travel to Akwaibong to find her, reasoning that she might be overwhelmed and in need of comfort. Despite his reluctance, he accepted her help, borrowing money for a one-way trip, convinced that Cheta would provide for his return. But nothing could prepare him for the heartbreak that awaited him in Akwaibong. Arriving at Cheta's workplace, Obena was met with confusion when the receptionist failed to recognize her name. He sat in the waiting room, growing more anxious with every passing minute. Then, through the glass doors, he saw her, Cheta, stepping out of a flashy SUV with Kosha, both dressed provocatively. His heart pounded as he rushed towards her, calling her name. But instead of joy, Cheta's face twisted in shock and embarrassment. She coldly denied knowing him, brushing him off as a stranger. Stunned, Obena's world crumbled as she claimed any previous association must have been a mistake. The woman he had sacrificed everything for had erased him from her life without a second thought. Devastated and stranded, Obena wandered the streets, desperate for a way back home. He asked for directions, but no one was willing to help. Finally, he called Bola, his last hope. Without hesitation, she wired him money for his return, her concern evident in her voice. As he boarded the bus back home, tears streamed down his face. Tears of betrayal, loss, and a broken dream. Back in Owerri, Obena struggled to find his footing. He lost his appetite, abandoned his work, and fell into despair. Bola, seeing his decline, tried everything to uplift him. One day, finding him in his workshop, staring blankly at his tools, she picked up a saw and offered to help. That moment stirred something in Obena. He grabbed the saw from her hands, and with a heavy heart resumed his craft. From that day, his healing began. Obena slowly regained his passion, thanks to Bola's unwavering support. She stayed by his side, encouraging him with every step. Their bond deepened, transforming from friendship to something more. Sweet words turned into soft touches, and soon love blossomed where heartbreak had once reigned. Then, fate smiled upon him. A wealthy client, impressed by his skill, offered him a lucrative government contract worth millions. Determined to prove himself, Obena completed the project in record time, catapulting his business into newfound success. With his fortune secured, he expanded his workshop into a prestigious furniture company catering to the city's elite. And at the peak of his success, he proposed to Bola, the woman who had stood by him through his darkest days. One afternoon, fate delivered one final twist. Cheta, now working under a demanding boss, was sent to inquire about furniture at Obena's showroom. Unaware of who owned it, she walked into his office and froze when she saw him. He too was taken aback but quickly composed himself. "Cheta," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of amusement and closure. "What are you doing here?" Cheta, struggling to process the transformation before her, muttered that she was sent to check prices. But before she could say more, Bola entered, heavily pregnant, carrying Obena's lunch. They exchanged kisses, oblivious to Cheta's presence. Turning to her, Bola offered a polite smile. "Oh, sorry dear, how are you?" Cheta stammered something, but Obena cut in, his voice firm yet laced with a hint of poetic justice. "This is Cheta, my ex-girlfriend, remember her?" Overcome with shame, Cheta turned and fled the showroom, tears streaming down her face. The love she had once scorned had flourished without her, leaving her with nothing but regret. Cheta left the showroom in a daze, her mind swirling with emotions she had long suppressed. She had once been the love of Obena's life, the woman for whom he sacrificed everything, and now she was nothing more than a stranger to him. As she walked back to her office, she wiped away the tears that betrayed the deep regret she felt. That night she lay awake, haunted by the memories of Obena's kindness. The money he had given her, the sacrifices he had made, and the love he had showered upon her all came rushing back. She had chosen a life of luxury over true love, and now as she lived in loneliness and pretense, she realized that she had lost something far more valuable than wealth. She had lost a good man. Bola, on the other hand, was living a life she never imagined possible. Once just a food vendor, she was now the wife of a successful entrepreneur, soon to be a mother, and surrounded by love. She knew how much Obena had suffered, and she had vowed to never let him fall again. Her patience, love, and support had rebuilt him from the ashes of despair. One evening, as they sat on their balcony, Bola held Obena's hand and said, "I always knew you were destined for greatness. I'm just happy I could be here to witness it." Obena smiled, squeezing her hand. "You saved me, Bola. When I thought life was over, you gave me a reason to fight again." Their love was a testament to the power of resilience, and together they had turned pain into triumph. News of Obena's success spread like wildfire across Owerri. People who once looked down on him now wanted his friendship. Some who had laughed at his heartbreak now praised his resilience. Even Obi, who had once warned him about Cheta, couldn't hide his admiration for how far he had come. But no one was more shocked than Nkechi, the woman who had once envied Cheta's position. She often watched Obena and Bola from afar, realizing that what she had once considered an insignificant food vendor had become the queen of Obena's heart. Life, she thought, had a strange way of rewarding the patient and punishing the greedy. Months later, Cheta found herself seated in a quiet cafe, drowning in thoughts of what could have been. She had broken up with Kosha long ago after realizing that her so-called glamorous life had left her empty. As she stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Turning around, she found herself face to face with Bola, her once rival and now the wife of the man she had lost. Bola, ever kind, smiled warmly. "Cheta, it's been a while. How have you been?" Cheta forced a smile, but her eyes betrayed the sadness within. "I've been managing." They sat together, and for the first time, Cheta heard the full story of how Bola had stood by Obena when he had nothing. By the end of the conversation, she could no longer hold back her tears. "I was foolish, Bola," she admitted. "I let go of a man who loved me, and I didn't even see it." Bola reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. Life teaches us lessons in unexpected ways. What matters is what you do with those lessons. As Bola neared her due date, Obena decided to make their union official in grand style. He organized a lavish wedding, one that the entire city of Owerri would talk about for years. The once humble Carpenter now stood tall, not only as a successful businessman, but as a man who had triumphed over betrayal and heartbreak. On the day of the wedding, as Bola walked down the aisle in a stunning white gown, Obena felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had loved, lost, and loved again, and now, standing before the woman who had healed him, he knew he had made the right choice. The crowd cheered as they exchanged vows, and at that moment, Obena knew that his past had only been a stepping stone to the beautiful future he was about to embrace. Just as the wedding festivities were coming to an end, a familiar face appeared at the entrance of the venue. It was Cheta. Dressed modestly, she stood there watching, her eyes filled with unspoken words. Obena saw her, and for a brief moment their eyes met. There was no anger in his gaze, no resentment, only a quiet acknowledgement of what had been and what had been lost. She turned away before anyone could notice her. She had come not to disrupt, but to witness. As she walked away, she whispered to herself, "I hope he finds the happiness I threw away." And with that, she disappeared into the crowd, carrying the weight of her regrets, while Obena danced into his future with Bola, the woman who had turned his pain into love. Obena and Bola settled into their new life as husband and wife, their love growing stronger with each passing day. Bola, now heavily pregnant, found joy in preparing their home for the arrival of their child, while Obena focused on expanding his business empire. His furniture showroom had become the talk of the city, drawing in elite customers from far and wide. One morning, as Bola sat on the porch sipping tea, she watched Obena work on a new design with precision and dedication. She marveled at how far they had come, from the days of struggle to a life filled with security and love. She placed a hand on her belly and whispered, "Our child will grow up knowing what true love and resilience look like." Months later, Bola went into labor and Obena rushed her to the hospital, his heart pounding with both excitement and fear. Hours passed, and just as dawn broke, the cries of a newborn filled the air. The doctor emerged with a wide smile. "Congratulations, you have a healthy baby boy." Tears streamed down Obena's face as he held his son for the first time. He looked at Bola, exhausted but radiant, and whispered, "We did it." She smiled weakly, gripping his hand. "He will know nothing but love and care." They named their son Chiemali, meaning God has won, a testament to the battles they had overcome. Meanwhile, Cheta's life had taken a downward spiral. Without the wealth and luxury she had once chased, she struggled to keep up with the demands of city life. The men who had once lavished her with gifts had long disappeared, leaving her to fend for herself. Desperate for stability, she attempted to rekindle old friendships, but most had moved on. Even Kosha had abandoned their friendship, chasing another high-life dream. Cheta often sat alone in her tiny apartment, scrolling through social media, where images of Obena and Bola's beautiful family haunted her. She had lost everything, and the regret weighed heavier than she could bear. One evening, as Cheta walked through the market, she bumped into Obi, Obena's old friend. His face registered shock before softening with pity. "Cheta, it's been a long time," he said cautiously. Cheta forced a smile. "Yes, Obi, life has been different." She hesitated before asking, "How's Obena?" Obi studied her, debating whether to speak the truth. He's happy, Cheta. He and Bola just had a baby. Cheta felt a lump in her throat, but nodded. That's good. He deserves happiness. For the first time, she realized that while she was stuck in the past, life had moved on without her. Cheta knew she could never undo the past, but she longed for some form of redemption. She decided to visit Owerri once more, hoping to find closure. She walked past Obena's workshop, watching from a distance as he played with his son in the courtyard. The sight brought both joy and pain. She made a silent promise to herself to change. She would work hard, build herself up, and create a life she could be proud of. With one last glance at the man she once loved, she turned away, ready to begin her journey of redemption, knowing that while some doors remained closed, new ones were always waiting to be opened. Cheta moved to a smaller town, seeking a fresh start. Determined to rebuild her life, she took up a job as a tailor's apprentice, learning the craft with dedication. Though it was a far cry from the glamorous life she once craved, she found solace in the steady rhythm of stitching fabrics, slowly stitching back the pieces of her broken life. With every passing day, she found herself becoming stronger. She no longer envied the past, but embraced the lessons it had taught her. She vowed never to take love and sacrifice for granted again. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful about the future. Obena's furniture business continued to flourish, earning recognition beyond Owerri. His designs were featured in prestigious magazines, and demand for his craftsmanship skyrocketed. He expanded his showroom, employing artisans and apprentices who, like him, once struggled to find opportunities. Bola stood proudly by his side, managing their growing household while still supporting her husband's dream. Their son, Chiemali, had become the center of their world, bringing laughter and warmth into their home. Together, they had built something unbreakable, something that no betrayal or hardship could shake. Years passed, and one fateful day, Cheta's work brought her back to Owerri for a business order. She had now become a skilled tailor, running her own boutique and providing employment to young women who needed guidance, just as she once had. As she walked through the bustling market, she noticed a familiar furniture showroom. Curiosity got the best of her, and she stepped inside. The smell of polished wood filled the air, and for a moment she was transported back in time. Then, a voice behind her made her freeze. "Cheta?" She turned around and found herself face to face with Bola. Bola greeted Cheta warmly, with no resentment in her eyes, only kindness. "You've changed," she said, noticing the maturity in Cheta's demeanor. Cheta smiled faintly. "Life has a way of humbling us, doesn't it?" They sat down and talked, not as rivals, but as two women who had learned from the past. Cheta finally apologized, not just to Bola, but to herself, for the mistakes she had made. Bola, in turn, reassured her that life had unfolded exactly as it was meant to. They parted ways, not as enemies, but as two people who had found peace in their own journeys. Before leaving Owerri, Cheta took one last stroll through the town, reflecting on her growth. She had finally made peace with the past and was ready to embrace the future with confidence. Meanwhile, Obena, now a respected businessman and family man, continued to build his legacy, forever grateful for the love and loyalty that had carried him through. And though their paths had diverged, both he and Cheta had learned the most valuable lesson of all, that true wealth was not in material possessions, but in the lessons learned, the love given, and the lives touched along the way. Cheta returned to her boutique with a renewed sense of purpose. Her encounter with Bola had left her with closure, but it also reignited a fire within her to build something meaningful. She threw herself into her work, mentoring young women and helping them rise above their struggles. Her boutique flourished, gaining attention for its elegant designs and intricate craftsmanship. One day, an investor approached her, impressed by her work. He offered to expand her business beyond the town, giving her the opportunity to grow her brand. Cheta hesitated at first, but she realized that this was her chance to create something bigger than herself, a legacy that would stand the test of time. Months later, as her boutique expanded to new locations, Cheta received an unexpected visitor, Obena. He had heard of her success and had come to congratulate her in person. There was no bitterness between them, only mutual respect for how far they had come. They sat down for a conversation, reminiscing about their past while acknowledging the growth they had experienced. "I'm proud of you, Cheta," Obena said sincerely. "You turned your life around and built something incredible." She smiled, grateful for his words. They both knew that their love story had ended long ago, but what remained was a deep sense of respect and gratitude. As Chiemali grew older, Bola found herself wanting to pursue her own dreams. With Obena's encouragement, she decided to open a foundation that provided training and financial support to underprivileged women. Having once been a struggling food vendor, she understood the struggles of starting from nothing. With Obena's backing, the foundation took off, helping dozens of women learn new skills and gain financial independence. Bola found fulfillment in knowing that she was making a difference, just as Obena had with his business, and just as Cheta was with hers. Years later, Cheta was invited back to Owerri for a business conference, where she was recognized for her contributions to the fashion industry. Among the guests were Obena and Bola, who stood proudly as she received her award. As she took the stage to speak, she glanced at them and smiled. "Success is not just about wealth," she said, "but about the lessons we learn and the people we uplift along the way." The audience applauded, and for the first time, Cheta felt complete. She had found her path, not through shortcuts or betrayal, but through resilience, hard work, and redemption. Obena, Bola, and Cheta had all taken different roads, but their journeys were deeply intertwined. They had faced heartbreak, loss, and betrayal, yet they had all emerged stronger. Their stories became an inspiration to many in Owerri, proving that even in the face of adversity, one could find redemption and success. As Obena and Bola watched their son grow, and as Cheta expanded her business, they all knew that the past had shaped them, but it did not define them. The carpenter's betrayal had led to redemption, and through it, they had all built legacies that would last for generations to come. When you watch this video, please subscribe and share.